What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. Now, in this video, we might be doing a little bit of fantasy, but at the same time, this could very well be a possible trade, or it could very well become a reality. Now, we're going to be talking about, obviously, we are technically, as of the recording of this video, and when this video comes out, we will be one day, about 24 hours away from free agency. And obviously, Brock Boeser has made it known to the Vancouver Canucks that he will test the market. Now, over the last 24 to 48 hours or so, we've heard a lot of rumors regarding Brock and, possible teams that are interested in Brock Boeser, including the Edmonton Oilers. But I was scouring the net for, content, stuff to talk about. And this scenario, well, not necessarily scenario, but this trade target caught my eye. So I looked into it and I came up with a little scenario of my own. So that is what this video is going to be about. But before we get into the main topic, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art. So go ahead, check him out. GassyJackArt.com is his website. Still has his end of season sale. So go ahead, check him out. You can also find him on Instagram at Gassy Jack Art. So yes, definitely go check out the prints, GassyJackArt.com. Back to our main topic. So if you haven't gathered by now, we're going to be talking about St. Louis Blues forward and winger Jordan Kyrou as a possible trade target for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, this article, of course, brought to us by our friends at Canucks Army. So this article written by Stefan Roget, and he goes on to say, the Vancouver Canucks were not successful in their bid for J.J. Peterka of the Buffalo Sabres, though it's not yet known how seriously they made that pursuit, nor were the St. Louis Blues, who, if reporting can be believed, offered up a package involving Jordan Kyrou. And what could almost be deemed a classic romantic comedy trope, could two spurned teams find a fresh start with one another? In other words, could the Canucks cut out the JJ middleman and just negotiate with the Blues for Kyrou? And should they? Right or wrong, the 27-year-old Kyrou was listed as the number 2 target on Daily Faceoff's trade targets board earlier this week, and coming off the back of those Peterka rumors, there's a little immediacy to the discussion too, because like the senior Elias Pettersson, Kyrou has trade protection kicking in as of July 1st, 2025. In this case, a full no trade clause. While trading a player right before their NTC kicks in can sometimes be considered unethical, that's not really the case for a player like Kyrou, who is already entering year 3 of his current contract. Even with Peterka off the market, then it's entirely possible that Kyrou is still on it, especially considering that the Blues are one of the few teams looking to cut cap, not burn it this offseason. Does that equate to the Canucks being interested? Let's talk about the player himself, Jordan Kyrou. Already having completed his 7th NHL season, Kyrou would seem to be a known quantity around big league circles, but despite fairly consistent point totals, there's an inconsistency to Kyrou's impact that has led to question marks about his future in St. Louis and in general. As someone drafted in the second round, 35th overall in 2016, the road to the NHL was a little longer for Kyrou than it is your typical high offense forward. He played 2 further seasons for the Sarnia Sting of the OHL after being drafted, then split his first two professional campaigns, 2018 and 2019, as well as 2019 and 2020, between St. Louis and San Antonio of the AHL. The pandemic-shortened 2020-2021 season was not technically Kyrou's rookie campaign, as he'd already played 44 regular season games and 5 playoff games the 2 years prior, but it was Kyrou's first as a full-time NHLer. In just 55 games, Kyrou notched 14 goals and 21 assists for 35 points, good for 5th in team scoring as he worked his way into the Blues' top 6. The next year, Kyrou broke out in a big way, putting up 27 goals and a still career-high 75 points in 74 games. The 2021-2022 season also saw Kyrou's best playoff run, more on that later, with 9 points in 12 games. The following season, 2022-2023, saw Kyrou break out in a different way, this time as a goal scorer. A career-high 37 goals accompanied 73 points in 79 games. It should be noted here, however, that this is the point at which some real questions began to be asked about Kyrou's play in his own end. Plus minus isn't a perfect stat, but a team worst minus 38 does say something. Those question marks got louder in 2023-2024, especially as Kyrou got off to a slow start, and he was moved to tears at one point after hearing boos on home ice. But Kyrou rebounded nicely enough, finishing the year with 31 points and 36 assists for 67 points in 82 games. The 2024-2025 season stayed relatively level from there. Kyrou's goals were back up to 36, and his points rose to 70 in 82 games. Still not quite where it was a couple of years back, but not exactly a worrying drop-off. Perhaps more importantly, he earned some praise for a growing commitment to his own end. The Blues returned to the playoffs, and Kyrou was so-so with 3 goals and no assists in 7 games against the Winnipeg Jets. That's the basic gist of Kyrou, a consistent 70-ish point producer who isn't all that consistent in how he gets there. Kyrou's size is fine at 6'1" and a shade under 200 pounds, though he won't ever be confused with a power forward. He has speed and shiftiness in his feet, a lot of creativity in his hands, and an all-around array of offensive skills that allow him to succeed in a number of different forward roles. Defensively, he's certainly improved over the last couple of seasons. He's not killing penalties or anything, but he's back on the positive side of most analytic stats, and back to being on the ice for more even strength goals for than against, lots more in 2024-2025, as in 63 to 35. Now, here's the downside as it pertains to the Canucks. Though Kyrou was drafted as a center and has definitely skated there occasionally at the NHL level, he settled in fairly exclusive deployment as a right wing, usually on the flank of either Rob Thomas or Braden Shen in recent seasons. It's certainly fair to state that the majority of Kyrou's production has come from the wing. The Canucks could always acquire him with the aim of putting him back at center and seeing how it goes. But that seems like a long shot and a risk. It's far more reasonable to acquire Kyrou to play the same right wing position he's mainly occupied thus far, and yes, the Canucks could still definitely use a scorer of his caliber in the top 6 on the wing. But they could definitely use a de facto top 6 center more, and Kyrou is the kind of acquisition that would expend the bulk of the available assets and cap space. Let's take a look at the cost. Sorry, I'm just going to put my glasses on. Kyrou comes with years 3 through 8. Kyrou is in year 3 of an 8-year contract with an $8.125 million AAV, and as was mentioned, a full no trade clause starting on July 1st that lasts until year 8 and then becomes a 15-team no trade list. There's a major component and a cost that has to be considered carefully, especially as it represents more cap space than the Canucks currently have on hand. But that's probably okay, because if the Canucks were going to acquire Kyrou, they'd almost certainly be giving up other players from their roster. The Blues are doing a bit of a retool on the fly, attempting to supplement their early to mid-20s core of players like Kyrou, Thomas, Dylan Holloway, and Philip Broberg, with an ongoing infusion of both youth and useful veterans. In this post-draft world, we can dispense with the idea of the Canucks trading their high picks for Kyrou. We're not sure the Blues would be interested anyway. The Canucks' 2026 first-rounder could always be on the table, but we'd avoid that option without some heavy protections. The Blues do have a need for a right-side defenseman younger than Colton Parayko and Justin Falk, and that does bring Filip Hronek to mind, as it did during talks surrounding Peterka. But giving up Hronek for Peterka was a tough deal to sell for many Canucks fans, and giving him up for an older wing with less offensive potential would be even tougher. It's also tough to imagine what the Canucks could add on top of an right side defenseman option like Victor Mancini to add up to a Kyrou, minus the other prospects or picks they wouldn't want to give up. This might be a case in which Tom Willander would have been placed on the table, and at this point we should be approaching not worth it territory for a less than ideal fit. That's sort of the story here. Let's take a look at what how Kyrou would fit for the Canucks. Canucks could definitely use the addition and talent represented by a Kyrou acquisition. Many have talked about the Canucks' offseason hinging on their acquiring some forwards who are at the very least better than that current top six conglomeration of Jake DeBrusk, Connor Garland, and now Evander Kane. In other words, the Canucks need to get their hands on their new best or second best forward, and Kyrou would definitely be that. He definitely also brings some specific skills to the table that GM Patrick Allvin and company value, particularly when it comes to his ability to skate with the puck. But that's about where the fit ends. The Canucks can't afford to spend all of their assets and cap space on a winger with question marks, not when they've got such an obvious need at center. On top of that, the Blues would seem to be most interested in the kind of assets the Canucks can least afford to give up, namely assets that can be used on the NHL roster in the present moment. Then there's the reality that any trade with the Blues needs to help them cut cap, and that the Canucks themselves aren't exactly flush in space. This will they, won't they is plainly trending toward a won't they. So that is the article in regards to Jordan Kyrou. Now, I mentioned I had like a little scenario, and I'm still going to say it, but obviously, having fully read that article, this is a bit of a, pipe dream, perhaps. And as I mentioned at the top of this video, maybe a little bit of fantasy. But basically, my scenario was trade Brock Boeser's rights to St. Louis, or at least have him part of a package for Jordan Kyrou, his rights, and as I mentioned, fantasy, have this scenario be Brock is willing to sign with St. Louis after the trade, similar to Nick Hague did with the Nashville Predators in that Vegas and Nashville trade. That is the type of scenario that I am imagining in order for us to acquire Jordan Kyrou. And obviously, you would have to include some other stuff in that package. It's not just going to be a one-for-one, but perhaps maybe a Mancini or even a Willander involved in that trade. Maybe even a couple of draft picks, and you can get Jordan Kyrou. And obviously, there's those question marks, but at the same time, Kyrou is at least a 70-point guy, and I think he would slot really well on that first line with Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. I mean, just picture this for a second. Your first line, you have DeBrusk, Petey, and Kyrou. as your first line. And then you have your second line of likely Garland, whoever your 2C ends up being. Pay attention to the next video and you'll know who I'm thinking that 2C could possibly be. Tune into to my next video on that. And then on the right wing, on your second line, you have Evander Kane. So there's your top 6 right there. You have DeBrusk, EP40, Kyrou, and then you have Garland, 2C, and Kane. No. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about that. What do you guys think about Jordan Kyrou as a possible Brock Boeser replacement? And, that's what I also think when it comes to Kyrou too. Kyrou, people talk about, who's going to replace Brock Boeser? For a little bit, people were saying Ehlers. Ehlers is your Brock Boeser replacement. And then, I'm firmly believing that Ehlers is not going to be available for us to acquire, or rather sign. I think he's heading for Montreal. I heard that he's good friends with Patrick Laine, and it's looking like Montreal might be his landing spot. So I've kind of ruled out Ehlers. If you want a replacement for Brock Boeser, it's Jordan Kyrou. So once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this, trade target, this little scenario, hot take, if you will, if you want to call it that. Sure. It's a little bit of a hot take, but I absolutely love Jordan Kyrou. And, he's a 70-point guy. The guy can put the puck in the net. I would most certainly say that offensively, Kyrou is a upgrade from Brock Boeser. He is, a year younger than Boeser? And he's also, if you traded for Kyrou, he has term. So you'd be locked up for him. And he's technically making right now Brock Boeser money. So, but that's just my opinion on it. I like the idea of Jordan Kyrou. Once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about Jordan Kyrou being a potential Canucks trade target. It's actually very well maybe the last trade target video that we do. So I figured we'd end it off with, I guess, a little bit of a bang. But once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. Find us on X at Line Change Van. And you can find us on TikTok at the.line.change.po. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, once again, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys next time.